Hello class. So we'd like to look at question 13 and on regarding the review holiday break assignment. So let us try to get started here. Now sum and the product of the roots for this given equation. How do you find the sum? Sum is negative b over a. Now negative, what's the value of b? B is negative 4. So I'm going to put negative 4 in this way. A is equal to 6. So then when you simplify this one, you will realize that two negative signs will become positive 4 over 6, which is equal to 2/3. Alright, and we see that only thing that's possible is choice 2. So that becomes our answer. But just for the sake of learning, what is the product? Product is just C over A. What's the value of C? Right over here. Negative 12 over A. A is equal to 6. Then when you simplify them, it becomes negative 2, which confirms our answer. Alright, let's move on to number 14. Here, so we are looking at x to the negative 1 plus 1 divided by x plus 1. Now, but when you look at x to the negative 1, how else can I write it? That is in fact equal to 1 over x. And then the rest of them I can write it as this way. Now, but when we have a complex fraction, what can we do so that we can simplify this one? That's right, we can multiply top and bottom by the common denominator. Here, common denominator is equal to x. So we can multiply top and bottom by x here. And what do we end up getting? X is multiplied to here, we get 1 plus x. Denominator is x plus 1 times x. Now, then you see that 1 plus x and x plus 1 can be cancelled out here because they're common. Then our final answer is 1 on the numerator and on the denominator is equal to x, 1 over x. That becomes our answer. Number 15. What is the conjugate? Conjugate is simply keeping the same thing as they are, but the sign of the I or sign of the radical will be changed. So instead of having positive sign here, we gotta have negative sign, which will be choice 2. Alright, let's look at number 16. What is the solution of this one? So similarly to before, what we're going to be doing is we will just factor this one as much as we can. So first we can factor out 3x. Then here x to the 4th minus 16 equal to 0. So once you factor this one, we get 3x, x squared minus 4, and x squared plus 4. You see, we can factor this one, but we cannot factor this. So we end up getting 3x, because this one is difference of square once again, x plus 2 and x minus 2. On the other hand here, it will be simply x squared plus 4 is equal to 0. Now, let us see if we can get the values of x here. So here, 3x can be equal to 0 only if x equals 0. Here, x plus 2 will be equal to 0 if x equals negative 2. Here, x equals positive 2. But here, x squared plus 4 has to be equal to 0. That means, equal to 0. That means x squared has to be equal to negative 4 by subtracting 4 from both sides. Then x in fact becomes plus or minus square root of negative 4. But what is square root of negative 4? That's equal to plus or minus 2i. So we have plus or minus 2 plus or minus 2i and then 0, which will be choice 3. Let's look at number 17. Find the solution of this inequality. First step will be we can subtract 5 from both sides. Then we will have x squared minus 4x minus 5 has to be greater than 0. Now, we can assume the equation x squared minus 4x minus 5 is equal to 0. Then we can factor x minus 5, x plus 1 is equal to 0. Then we get to realize that x will be equal to 5 or negative 1. Those are our boundaries. So here we have negative 1 and then the 5. Let's plug in value from each section and then plug that into here and see which one of them will satisfy our answer. What we're looking for is positive. So if I were to use a number that's less than negative 1, such as negative 2, then this portion becomes, I'm looking at negative 2 squared minus 4 times negative 2 minus 5. Here we get 4. Here we get plus 8 minus 5. Once you combine them, we get 7. Is 7 greater than 0? Yes, it is. So that becomes our answer. How about between these two? We can use 0. Then this will cancel out, this will cancel out. Only thing that's left is negative 5. Is negative 5 greater than 0? No, it's not. So that is not our answer. How about 6? Which is greater than 5 in this section. So we would have had a 6 squared plus 4, not plus, but minus, in fact. Minus 4 times 6 minus 5. What do you end up getting? So we have 36 minus 24 minus 5. If you have to combine them together, we'll end up getting 7. And once again, 7 is greater than 0, so that is our answer. Therefore, our answer is this section and this section. Right, so we could have actually open circle from both ends because we don't have the equal sign on the right over here. All right, so let us move on to the next question. Number 18. How do we solve this one algebraically? You see, our first step has to be isolating the radical by itself. So we can subtract 4 from both sides. Then here we get negative square root of 2x minus 5 will be equal to negative 3. Now, once you square both sides, then we get 2x minus 5 will be equal to 9. Because negative negative becomes positive on both sides. Then by adding 5, so we get 2x is equal to 14, and x becomes 7. But to see if this one is actually correct or not, let us try to plug in 7 in place of x to check. 4 minus square root of 2 times 7 minus 5. In fact, is that equal to 1? So we have 4 minus, here we get 14 minus 5 becomes square root of 9. Is that equal to 1? 4 minus 3. That's right, square root of 9 is equal to 3. Is that equal to 1? Yes, it is. So 7 is in fact our correct answer. Alright, let's look at number 19. Notice we have cube root. The fact that we have cube root, that means this is the same thing as having the exponent of 1/3. So here we have a to the 6th and b to the 9th power, and over here 64, if you have to break it down, then we get negative 2 to the, oops, I'm sorry. Negative was already there, 2 to the 6th power, whole thing to the 1/3 power. Now, then this exponent 1/3 will be distributed to a, b, and then also to the denominator. Let's see what we end up getting. 6 to the 1/3, a to the 6th power to the 1/3 power, simply that means we got to multiply 6 times 1/3. We end up getting a squared. Here we get b to the 3rd power. Here 2 to the 2nd power, and notice that this negative sign will survive the cube root. Even though negative sign goes underneath the square root, it becomes imaginary number, but under cube root it's okay. So our answer is still this way. So if you don't rewrite it, then we get negative a squared b to the 3rd power over 4, or anything equivalent to this one would have been our answer. Alright, let's look at number 20. Let's try to factor one by one and see what happens here. This x cubed minus 3x squared plus 6x minus 18. How would you factor this one? What if I group them 2 at a time? Then here I get x squared and then x minus 3. Common factor here is equal to 6, so plus 6 x minus 3. Then we realize that x minus 3 is common, so factoring out x minus 3, then we are left with x squared plus 6. Now, anything else that's quite difficult? I guess the rest of them is rather simple, so I'm going to rewrite everything using these. So this portion, I wrote it as black ink right over here. X squared minus 4x, I can factor out x, then we get x minus 4 multiplied by. Here x cubed is common, so x cubed and x minus 3. Here 2 is common, so x minus 2. Division can be expressed as multiplication as long as we flip them around. So 16 minus x squared would be not factored in the denominator, but it will go to the numerator. Here we get 4 minus x, 4 plus x. And here we get x minus 4, or actually x plus 4, x minus 2. Let us try to cancel things out here. X plus 4 plus x is those two things can be canceled out. But on the other end, 4 minus x will cancel out with x minus 4. But notice that their orders are not the same. With the negative sign in the middle, then we will have negative 1. Because they're opposite in signs, we can cancel them out, but we cannot forget the negative sign. X minus 2, x minus 2. X minus 3, x minus 3. And I guess there isn't any more, so we get negative 2 x squared plus 6 survives on the top. On the bottom, we get x to the 4th power. So that seems to be our answer. Alright, number 21. Here, if a is equal to 3 and b is equal to negative 2. So let's try to plug them in and see what we end up getting. But to do this one, a to the negative 2 power, see, whenever you use the negative exponents, you can assume that they're in the wrong places. So here, a to the negative 2 will in fact go to the denominator, becomes a squared. B goes to the numerator and b to the cube. But since b is negative 2, so we're going to get negative 2 to the 3rd power. Over a was equal to 3, so a squared. 3 squared. 3 squared becomes 9. And negative 2 to the 3rd power, in fact, becomes negative 8. Because when you have 3, negative becomes still negative. So our answer is negative 8 over 9, which is choice 3. Now, how can we simplify this one? If you have to break it down 300, we can easily see that that's 3 times 10 times 10. So in fact, we have negative sign will give us I and then square root of 300. But this can be rewritten as I square root of 3 times 10 squared. So since it's a square root, only thing with the square will come out. Then becomes 10 squared will come up, becomes 10. So we have 10I square root of 3. That becomes our answer, which is choice 3. Let's factor this one completely. I see that x squared is common first, so we have, or 2x squared, how about that? 2x squared. We have 6x squared plus 5x and minus 6. Now, then which combination of the factors of 6 can I put them together so that I can have addition to be 5? In fact, six is 2 times 3. So in fact, 2 times 3, 2 times. So in other words, if I have 2x, then the other one has to be 3x. But if 3x is multiplied with 3, and 2x is multiplied with 2, so then in this way, this becomes 9x. And in this becomes, we get 4x. And you can see that difference is equal to 5x. But since it has to be positive 5x, then that means 9x has to be positive. That makes this one to be positive, and this one to be negative. And that becomes our final answer, which is choice 4. Number 24. By looking at the choices, I guess it might be better for us to use the quadratic formula. By subtracting 9, so we get y squared minus 3y minus 9 is equal to 0. then what is y using the quadratic formula? So we have negative b, which get us 3 plus or minus b squared, which is equal to 9, minus 4a, which is equal to 1, c is equal to negative 9, all over 2 times a, which is equal to 1. Then here we get 3 plus or minus. Once you calculate this one, we get square root of 45 over 2. So 3 plus or minus square root of 45 can be expressed as square root of 9 and square root of 5. So square root of 9 will get us 3 square root of 5 over 2, which is choice 4. And we'll stop here for now, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.